Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of View It, Cue It, or Screw It. We're the City Geeks. I'm Gavin, and with me as always is my good friend Neville. We're here to watch Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, the 9th episode of the Skywalker saga, and the last episode of the sequel trilogy. So, Neville, you're more of a sci-fi nerd than I am. What are your expectations going in?
Well, The Last Jedi was a complete dumpster fire. But I thought The Force Awakens was pretty good, and their side stuff like Rogue One and Solo were very enjoyable in my opinion. It's clear that Disney is capable of making a good Star Wars film. Since J.J. Abrams is back, I'm just hoping he can conclude the things he himself set up. Overall, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Well, I'm personally not pleased the way that Disney's been handling the franchise. Like you, I liked Rogue One and Solo a bit, but nothing they've done so far has really felt like an addition to the property, just rehashes and cheap fan service. I don't think Disney is capable of wrapping up a 9-movie franchise in any satisfying way. I expect it to be pretty bad.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Well, let's go see how it is.
Okay.
Okay, Neville, you've always been more of a Star Wars fan than me, so what'd you think?
Well, after the dumpster fire that was The Last Jedi, this movie is a breath of fresh air. It didn't go out of its way to invalidate everything that was set up previously, and the characters, both old and new, were treated with a lot more respect.
Agreed. Finn and Poe were really interesting characters in concept when they were introduced in The Force Awakens, but in The Last Jedi, they sidelined Poe and turned Finn into comic relief. For most of the film, both characters were pointless. In this film, both were given more to do, so they were more important members of the Resistance.
I felt they handled the death of Carrie Fisher really well, although sometimes it was a bit jarring seeing footage of Leia from the previous two films being reused.
I noticed that too. There was a scene where Leia hugged Rey, and you could tell it was the exact same footage of the two hugging at the end of The Force Awakens.
Well, they had to work with what they had, so I can overlook that. I think the special effects look good. The lightsaber battles were what you would expect.
Right, but honestly, with the resources available to Disney, good effects are the minimum requirement. There is no excuse for them to have bad effects in their movies. The fact that the effects were good is no defense. Neville, I honestly think that you went into this with low expectations because of how bad The Last Jedi was, and because of that, this movie didn't disappoint you. Once we get into the spoilers and you're forced to give it some more thought, I think you'll see that this is just another dumpster fire.
Well, let's dive in.
Okay then, spoilers ahead. One of my biggest gripes of the film, quite honestly, is the pacing, and the bad pacing is largely attributed to the poor editing and writing.
It did seem like there was constantly some sort of action going on, and there wasn't much time for story or character development.
Not only that, but there were scenes that should have happened in a different order. There was the scene where everyone thinks Chewie died. Very quickly, the audience has shown that he's actually alive, but for quite a while after, the characters are still unaware and mourning his death.
True, that would have been much better if they kept us in the dark like the characters, but almost instantly we're shown that he's just fine. While the characters are mourning, we know he's okay and it removes any impact the scenes could have had.
Another poorly paced scene involved Kylo Ren using the Force to communicate with Rey and snatching the necklace that she received from a child on Pasana. Even if we ignore the absurd fact they can pass physical objects over vast distances using the Force, the pacing is still horrible. Within minutes, the necklace was already analyzed, they already had stormtroopers at their location.
Well, that does seem a bit convenient, but let's assume they have stormtroopers on most planets. It's not unreasonable to assume there were some nearby.
But still, while Rey and the gang had done very little on Pasana, Kylo already had time to have the necklace analyzed, her location pinpointed, and troopers deployed to her location. Very little happens after this, but by the time Rey and the group are already to leave, the Knights of Ren and Kylo are already there. They must have already been close by.
Well, yeah, that does seem a bit convenient.
You keep using the word convenient, and that's probably the worst thing about this movie. Everything is just too convenient, and there's really no sense of danger or consequences for anything that happens. While being chased by stormtroopers, they just happen to be thrown off their skiffs and land in a quicksand, or whatever the hell that stuff was. When they fall through to the caverns, they just happen to find the thing they were looking for. The thing Luke spent years looking for and gave up on. Had they not been chased, had they made it a little further, had the skiffs blown up any earlier, they wouldn't have landed in that small patch of quicksand, directly over the caverns that just happened to contain the thing they were looking for.
Okay, well, the more you talk about it, the more I'm starting to see some problems too. Like the death of Chewie fake-out. How was she able to sense Chewie alive on the ship later, but she wasn't able to tell that he wasn't on the transport that blew up? How was she able to levitate herself at the beginning of the movie, but later she struggles to climb in the Death Star wreckage?
Speaking of the Death Star wreckage, how was Rey just conveniently standing in the exact right place for the dagger to line up and show her the location of the Wayfinder? She didn't even know that the dagger was supposed to be used that way. When she figured it out, she just happened to be standing in exactly the right spot. This scene reminds me of the doubloon from the Goonies, but at least the Goonies had a map that showed them where to stand, which just proves things like this can be done well, but for some reason the writers and directors of Disney Star Wars just can't be bothered to do it right.
What about earlier in the film, when Poe hyperskips the Millennium Falcon? Back in the first Star Wars, Han Solo explains to Luke that there are lots of complex calculations that have to be made before you can jump to light speed, but Poe does it several times per minute, with seemingly very little thought.
Ah, the rose-colored glasses have come off. You're starting to see it for the horrible mess it is. Give in to the dark side. Nitpick, my nerdy friend. Let your hatred of plot holes and logical fallacies flow, and your journey to the dark side will be complete.
Why did the procedure to retrieve the information from C-3PO erase his memory? That's like trying to recover a locked file from your computer, but to do it, you have to format your hard drive. That's not how computers work. But even if that somehow made sense, you're right. There were no consequences. They just restored him from a backup in R2-D2 later anyway. Why is that even a thing? Do all protocol droids have to have an R2 unit to back up to? How do they back up R2? Why do they even care if their memories are erased? One is just supposed to be a translator, the other just opens locked doors and hacks computers. Why did the Emperor just keep trying the same thing over and over? Why did he think a second Death Star and the Starkiller base were going to work when they kept getting blown up so easily? How incompetent is this guy? How did he spend years planning his next big move, and then get defeated in an afternoon once he started to carry out his plan? Also, how did Palpatine have a kid? Who would bang that guy? If Palpatine wanted Rey to kill him so he could possess her body, then why didn't he do that with Anakin? Is it because Anakin's willy got burned off when he fought Obi-Wan and he knew he would need a willy to eventually have children? Why didn't he do the same with his child? Did the Force skip a generation? Why did Obi-Wan hide Luke with Anakin's family on his home planet? Why didn't Obi-Wan force heal Qui-Gon? Why didn't Boba Fett use his jetpack to escape the Sarlacc? If the DeLorean wouldn't start, how did Marty still hit the wire at the exact second he had to? Wouldn't he be a few seconds late? Why didn't Picard grab Data so they could both beam out? They did that all the time! If you can't feed a Mogwai after midnight, when can you start feeding them again? What the f***? God, mother God!
Hey, whoa, buddy. It's okay. It's gonna be alright.
I just saw every flaw of every movie I've ever loved flash before my eyes.
Well, okay, I actually think I know a way we can work with that, but right now we have to finish our video about the rise of Skywalker. You think you could do that, pal?
Yeah. Sorry, I got a bit carried away.
So, view it, cue it, or screw it. If you're a fan of Star Wars, it's pretty obvious that you're going to want to see this movie regardless, just to see how the saga ends. But I really don't want to reward Disney at the box office, so I say cue it. Actually, this is going to be a first for Cinegeeks, although I don't condone this sort of thing, but maybe you should just pirate it. Well, what about you, Neville? What do you think?
As much as I wish I'd never seen this film, I had to have closure, and I think most Star Wars fans will feel the same. So I say cue it, although I think most fans are going to view it. It's not so much a dumpster fire as you described it. It's more like a flaming oil barrel surrounded by hobos under a bridge. It's entertaining to watch, but it falls apart with any critical thought. This entire trilogy has been a disappointment. Can you finish without me? I need to go lie down.
Sure thing, buddy. Thanks for watching. If this is your first time here and you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe. We'd also love to know what you think, so leave us a comment. I better go check on Neville.
Back in the first Star Wars, Han Solo explains to Luke that there are lots of Whew. Let's try that again. If Palpatine wanted Rey to kill him so he could possess her body, then why didn't he do that with Anakin? Oh, you cunt. Sit your ass down.